Okay, look, there's a reason why this is considered the absolute worst thing related to Double, bar the spring movie cameos.
Why I think it is it's ironically Riku Sanjo's capability in crafting likable characters working against him. The Never team in Double Forever were pretty much genocidal maniacs, so in fleshing them out as people, he failed to keep consistent with how, not long after the events of this movie, they are supposed to commit a series of actions that would attempt to murder the entire populace of a city.
The humanization of them is not why this movie fails exactly, but it is a factor, as many are written differently within the story being told that is consistent with their characterization and previously presented motivations that came from the characters' own mouths. And yet the movie says they're supposed to sync up. That, and a lot of other contradictions to both expectation and prior exposition, makes it seem like someone other than a guy who worked on the series wrote it, instead of its main writer.
The film opens with Double dealing with another sweet Stopant. Hi, Riku Sanjo! After this, however, they are confronted by a woman, who...
Wait, what's Shinken Pink doing here?
The hell? Well, she's here because of Katsumi, and to take revenge on then killing him. They restrain her, telling of his genocidal scheme, only for her to refute that with the word of him being responsible for saving her. This begins the tale through a series of flashbacks this woman, named Mina, presents to us.
And from this point onwards, everything else showcased in the film can now be put into question as is being presented by a biased narrator. As...
How did you know about the parts you weren't there for?
This point becomes relevant several times.
Anyways, this transitions to a scene of Maria with a young Katsumi, before showing us Junkazu's initial approval of the Necro-Over experiment. Katsumi made its first test subject because he was just killed in a car accident? Regardless, Jun presents the findings to his superiors. Katsumi aged to his normal appearance by cellular infusions that are revealed in this movie to be the Necro-Over's most significant weakness. If they do not get these cell infusions, they go back to being a dead corpse.
Doesn't this entirely defeat the point of your whole immortality and revival process, then, if they die without this? Hell, doesn't this conflict with the whole immortal super soldier thing?
I mean, yes, we see them use these injectors in Double Forever, but they are given no purpose within the narrative of that movie for why they do that, and could have easily been a replacement for, what, food? That this is just a prioritized story for doing so, but no, their entire immortality hinges on this serum of specially programmed cells.
Which thus creates a sudden massive weakness to the whole Necro-Over process, not present previously, and I think solely done to leave the Never team at a disadvantage throughout the film. As, admittedly, it's hard to give a damn about a character that can literally not die.
I mean, it's not like this specific weakness was what caused a rejection of the process in favor of Gaia memories. It's just another thing tacked on to that, and an unnecessary one.
As, remember, both Katsumi and Jun's Grandmaster Evil plans was to use the knowledge of the Gaia memories to forcibly evolve everyone into Necro-Overs due to them being immortals with no weaknesses and greater strength than humanity. Undying, powerful, and their talents only reinforced with the Gaia memories to levels normal humans using that gear cannot match. But in doing so, will kill the humanity within them. However, this film showcases the big damn flaw in that they are nothing but walking corpses that if they don't get a special injection, daily? That they shut down and return to being corpses.
Thus, both the plan in Double Forever and the one Jun tried to pull at the end of Double, thanks to the exposition given not even 5 minutes into this movie, ruins them. Such now become utterly asinine, as what their end goal is has now been made synonymous with senseless mass genocide. And they now know this from the outset as they suffer from that limitation. You don't do this!
And yet, from this movie's outset, Katsumi is trying to make Foundation X see the value of this process despite being fully aware of this major design flaw in it.
財団 X からの投資の打ち切りが伝えられた。
まだ終わりじゃない。ネバーの戦いはこれから始まるのさ。
But that's really dumb. But he's so cool. But that's so dumb.
Which further, 1. shows that Katsumi is not a hero in any respect, despite how Mina's story is trying to state that he at one time was, and 2. shows that Jun is really stupid when every single one of his super soldier experiments inevitably will result in death for both the user and those dominated in their conquest scheme.
Like, how does he so consistently fuck that up? Foundation X is supposed to be a modern-day, competent evil organization, except whenever Jun gets involved in something, their plans turn to crap. Tsk, no wonder Neon Uslan didn't want to give him the time of day. This probably isn't the first time this has happened.
Regardless, in trying to show the merit to Necro development, Katsumi creates his own band of mercenaries from people he comes across just as they're dying, or by killing them himself to recruit them. The last of the eventually seen Double Forever team being Reika, as she's pulled straight out of Alcatraz when she attempts an escape.
Alcatraz Island in San Francisco, California, as a prison has been closed since 1963. Sanjou does better research than this.
Anyways, Reika's revived, and immediately the other team members have something to say. Though even here, Marie is shown enabling Katsumi's obsessions, her managing their state of revival for her son. Reika is initially reluctant to join them, until Katsumi reveals the "with no continued injections, you'll just die again" thing, which gets her on board. And he reveals that they're going to go off and kill a terrorist.
That is the exact opposite thing of what you just said.
Reika is thus the audience surrogate to facilitate exposition.
Or, you know, since this entire story is a flashback told by Mina, maybe you could use her as a narrator for these details.
Regardless, this is how Never got their reputation as mercenaries, them hitting a random country to kill an entire cell operating somewhere in Asia. And we get a pretty decent action scene of them and their specialties. Reika with fists, Katsumi his knife, Gozo Demoto with his staff, Ken Ashihara his rifle, and Izumi... very bad jokes.
I do not get you. You keep reading as several distinct types of flamboyant, yet your lines repeatedly imply you want to change sexes. Genki Sudo, I love your work, dude, honestly, but Oren Pierre Alfonso was written and played with more subtlety than this guy. Because Sailor Moon and he is the Luna Dopant.
They all recover from the fight, Gozo revealing their mercenary work is all just to fund their true agenda, and Maria's experiments, which they will all use to take on their former investors. Inside a collapsed building, however, they find one last man, who was killed by Mina, who is a psychic, using her powers a lot until she's exhausted, Katsumi stopping just before killing her. Why?
いやいや戦ってるようなやつを殺す価値はない。
それが私と克実の出会い。同時に大きな悲劇の幕開けでもあった。
Yes, but I just have one question that Shotaro and Philip don't ever ask.
How did you know about the parts you weren't there for?
2 more psychics attack them, named Shion and Lloyd.
Hi, Opera Blue!
They're introduced as Quarks, psychic soldiers developed by Foundation X, proclaiming themselves superior to Katsumi's little pack of dangerous zombies. They demand Mina back in the name of their boss, Dr. Prospect. They refuse, and run, only to be confronted by... Eternal Red Flare?
Jun Kazu? The hell?
However, Katsumi senses something, somehow, from the memory, reaching out to it in a trance which causes it to glitch out. The hell? Jun discards the memory, considering it a defective prototype. It is the T1 version of Eternal, after all. Instead, Jun choosing to use his own psychic power.
Another point against this movie, honestly. Before this, we assumed Jun's telekinesis, which made his Utopia Dopant form so deadly as it was capable of completely stopping attacks against him before they hit, was part of his base power set with that memory, supported by how Philip and Shotaro's emotions in their final, Transformations Extreme, were able to completely negate them as they overwhelmed his emotion and forced redirection powers.
Instead, no, the Junkazu they fought at the end of the series is simply the culmination of 3 different superhuman augmentation projects all overlaid into one person, which in my opinion weakens the portrayal of Utopia, as the powers of Utopia and what it represented through Jun's attempts at Gaia Impact were what was the final enemy of the series. Weaken the memory, and you weaken the intent of that threat and that thematic finale.
Not help that, before, Jun was promoting Necro-Overs as a perfect state of being and culmination of human potential, but here he's entirely dismissive, if not derisive, of their existence.
Still, he decides to abduct those he's paralyzed for no explicable reason.
And as this decision hinges the rest of the movie's plot, he kind of did need one here.
He takes them to the village, one not created by M. Night Shyamalan, this being their secret installation in a walled-off section of the world.
And on that day, mankind received a grim reminder. We lived in fear of the Dopants, and were disgraced to live in these cages called walls.
No, I'm totally serious on that. Everyone here, all these humans experimented on to develop psychic powers, do live in fear of Dopants, as Dr. Prospect is the Eyes Dopant, that can control all of them to keep them stuck in this walled-off cage, a constant reminder of their grim fate hanging overhead.
Foundation X has anti-gravity technology to keep that structure afloat? How advanced are they?
Still, upon waking in the village, Katsumi is immediately set upon by the Quarks, which Katsumi in turn antagonizes for not bothering to fight back against their masters. After torturing Reika for a bit, because Dr. Prospect introduces himself to Katsumi down among the rabble, explaining that Mina is special among all of his test subjects, having developed the ability to manifest every psychic power on record with surprising strength, while everyone else here has far weaker and fewer powers, which, through his memory, he can also hold complete control over. Katsumi tries to attack him, only for, even with this special power-focused Dopant that are physically weaker over body-specialized ones, for Katsumi to be completely outclassed. Reika appears, somehow, rescuing Katsumi as his cellular enzyme enhancements run dry, leaving him less powerful than a normal human, and showing how worthless being a Necro-Over actually is.
Cheat! Hacks! Patch nerfs! Stupid Maximum Mighty X.
Reika in turn shows how strong a Necro-Over can be if properly powered, with her killing a man Kamen Rider Gil style. They escape on a bike she commandeers, Eyes just letting them go, as there is nowhere to go. On the ground, however, Mina finds a harmonica Katsumi dropped. With the other Never agents, they in turn flash back to their own meetings with Katsumi. Izumi having been a Yakuza agent that was betrayed by his own gang due to him being older than them.
And thus came the fall of World Order.
Go have a nice day. また人生振り返っちゃってる。レストです。死んでしまうんだ。もううるさい。
Ken in turn was an officer who died in the line of duty, and Gozo shown to be an environmental protester who was murdered by land developers, and I don't mean gangsters this time, actual land developers murdered him, simply to get rid of his annoyance. But regardless, the same thing happened with all of them. As they lay dying, Katsumi came to them, chosen by him, and he became their savior. all of them devoted to him for giving them life.
Yeah, and we all know how that turned out, right?
お前は負け犬だお前の代わりはいくらでも作れる
Incidentally, that interpretation never stops being presented at any point in this film.
Maria arrives with their cargo plane, rescuing the other Never agents from cell depletion, consumed with worry over Katsumi, and somehow having already found out where he is, ordering the lot of them to find him, with the movie showing that Katsumi's funding for Maria's research has already permitted her to complete the plans for the X-Picker, which will later end up used on Futo. Katsumi and Reika wait for resupply, Reika asking about the emergency doses they apparently carry, only for Katsumi to say they should save it. Mina finds the pair, revealing she followed his thoughts using the harmonica as a medium, which doesn't make any damn sense. But now, Mina's compromised their location, and to make things worse, when she makes contact with Katsumi's body, Mina reads his memories.
Apparently she didn't look too deep into them, nor do most people who watch this film. Oh, trust me, it's coming.
見たのかならもう止める理由はないな
She reveals Prospect is going to unleash the Heaven's Judgment attack.
We are fighting Reggie McKenzie and her Angel Lords. Kudos to my fans who got that one.
No, it's actually an electrical-based bombardment carried out by that floating thing above the village. A tombstone will kill anyone without sufficient psychic power to resist the attack.
How would an electrical attack not kill every single damn thing it comes into contact with, psychic powers or no? Furthermore, why is this even required? Prospect can test the potential of his quarks, and, as is shown following this, he can kill anyone and everyone affected by his eyes dopant powers with a thought. There's no need for this floating killsat in the story. Hell, there's no need for weak psychics in this story either, as if they're not developing power, they're useless to Prospect and Foundation X, and he can just kill them with his power development experiments. It was shown with Reiko, he'll experiment on any one and thing. What's keeping him from taking apart his obvious lab rats, brain cell by brain cell, to figure out how to amp up their psychic powers? They're trying to sell this guy as a modern era Mengele or Dr. Shinigami, and as this was a direct-to-video production, that, if the other cinema were any indication, weren't rated, so why not go all in?
This encourages Katsumi to take their stim packs so he can do something to avert their coming death, as their Necrover status won't keep them living past electrical incineration.
Being a Necrover really is made worthless in this film.
Thus, he kicks the asses of the mooks preparing to lead the rejected quarks to their deaths, revealing this to the lot of them, and trying to get them to fight with the declaration that he will defeat Prospects. They aren't convinced, beginning to panic, only for Katsumi to play them a calming song with his harmonica, one he no longer knows where he learned, as on top of everything else new to the Necrover lore, apparently they lose their memories over time.
俺にはこれがどんな曲なのかもう全くわからん
I would say that explains so much, but that directly contradicts how Mina just minutes ago read his mind and memory he says he doesn't have anymore, alongside the entire music box subplot of Double Forever. What the hell?
I mean, I can cite you the scene where he mentions his past musical talent that he has full memory of in Double Forever, which makes the memory loss rationale for his descent into being a monster utter bullshit.
過去が消えていくなら俺はせめて明日が欲しい死人の俺の方が懸命に明日を求めてるってのは一体どういうわけなんだ
He gives Mina the harmonica, he has no use for it, with Mina then picking up the hanging thread to convince her people to fight. Shion and Lloyd come back into this. They were just so essential, with this beginning the battle between Prospect loyalists and the rejects.
克実という心の英雄を得て
What heart? You can fight for a future and have that future be awful for others. Shown, again, by how this film showcased the X-Picker already being designed and awaiting construction with which to mass convert people into Necro-Overs. Just because Katsumi's words inspired them to fight doesn't make his conduct actually heroic.
As, remember, Katsumi has a hate-on for Foundation X. This entire facility is Foundation X personnel, and he too will die if they're allowed to fire that weapon. His actions aren't inspiring them to fight, he's disgusted with them for being so cowardly. It's Mina that actually inspires them. And now this internal conflict is only facilitating the destruction of this facility. The Quarks killing each other, serving as the distraction, allowing Katsumi up into the facility's mansion, with which to confront Dr. Prospect and June, who are Foundation X personnel he would have killed anyways. June mentions in passing the other research city, Futo, and yes, that passing mention is now made why Katsumi would target them next, as June was the one in charge of Gaia memory development.
Jeez, no wonder Neon dropped him like a prom dress. 3 failed super soldier projects? That's a bad record, dude!
Instead of trying to use Eternal again, June reveals Utopia, overpowering Katsumi with it, even though he finds it impossible to absorb hope from Katsumi, as he has none.
君の悪い化け物め。
この世に自分の存在を刻みつけるその日まで永遠に。
Yeah, somehow that sync thing allows him to fix whatever was wrong with it, and change the weaker red flare into eternal blue flare, allowing him to overpower Utopia as it can't suck him dry.
エターナルマキシマムドライブ。
And thus June dies, Katsumi breaking the system controlling the killsat and opening the gates.
Wait, if he just broke that thing, then how the hell is it still floating above them? Shouldn't it come crashing down and kill everyone in the complex?
Prospect's baffled, transforming into his Dopant form and distracting Katsumi long enough for June's subordinates to retrieve his body, them agreeing to use the Necro-Over process that they still have the data for on their boss to revive him as they think he's that essential to their future plans. But since the gates open, the other Never members can rush in, giving Reika more of the serum so she doesn't break down, and lead everyone out to their deaths. Because Prospect still has his Dopant powers, and he can kill all of them with a thought, as long as they still bear his markings.
Yeah, kinda forgot that part, didn't you? I mean, the entire time Katsumi is fighting the Ice Dopant, he is fully aware of what Ice's power can do to the Quarks, and this little rebellion is worthless as he could have severed the cords of his puppets at any time. And yet, Katsumi spends this entire fight toying with Dr. Prospect.
And yes, this is the point, as they escape, that all of them die. Katsumi only now just realizing this and being shocked at Mina's death. But that too is odd, as it doesn't follow from his prior characterization and actions with Mina to be devastated like this, especially as this is supposed to sever the last shred of his humanity.
お前らが連中を皆殺しにしたのだよ。
俺としたことが一瞬忘れちまってたぜ。人は皆悪魔だということを。
Now, here's the thing about Double Returns Eternal. That's not what happens. At all. He starts the movie as a villain, killing things to further his ultimate goal, and ends it as one as he goes off to start his master plan. The only difference is he is purportedly the Viewpoint character now.
This film's purpose was to give context to why Katsumi Daidou would choose to go off and attack Futo, flesh out more of both Foundation X's activities, and explore his origins as a Necro-Over and his Never team. And it does so through the lens of Katsumi's animosity towards Foundation X, leading the two groups into conflict. As the movie presents with him and his group initially being mercenaries, they're not some type of noble-intentioned anti-hero. Their jobs were all done to fund themselves and their eventual revenge scheme against Foundation X.
And why are they plotting revenge against Foundation X? Because they canceled Maria's Necro-Over research. But this makes no sense because of what we were told about the matter.
Maria originally went to them with her research to save her son. She achieved that. Them no longer funding that research doesn't change how he's back among the living. Only the fact that he came back wrong when she did bring him back.
That detail of his memory loss is something new to the necrover process, included to account for his shift from Philip-like kind child musician to outright murderous psychopath, but it was already accounted for in how he was tortured as part of the necro-over experiment. But regardless on what take, the key here is the incident depicted in this film was not the straw that broke the camel's back. He was already an uncaring, omnicidal maniac.
Proven by how Maria, on Katsumi's order, is already in the process of developing the X-Beaker, which will mass convert large populaces into necro-overs. What he tried to do to Futo was already in the works even before Katsumi's team even got involved in this incident. And it never, once, seemed like Mina was even bringing his humanity back to him with their interactions in this movie.
What went wrong with this film is Riku Sanjou never removed him or made him act any differently from the Katsumi depicted in Double Forever. It's still fully consistent until it came time to tie this back into what would set off that movie's events. It falls apart as he overcompensated trying to move things back to that, as he was still writing him as if he was the antagonist in Double Forever, and not a good man that's slowly been losing himself. Or alternatively, that said good man is so far gone that he's already indistinguishable from the monster he was already shown to become.
Thus you have at the end this out-of-place moment where he's suddenly, broken by this one person that he barely knew dying, which snowballs into wanting to massacre thousands, even though it is his own damn fault? Which is said, but not shown, to cause a distinct shift in his personality? I'm sorry, but no. That doesn't work, as it doesn't come naturally from the story being depicted, as it's only something said to happen, not shown to happen.
But there is an explanation for all of this. This is all being told by Mina. All of this is her narration and depiction of things and what she thinks happened. As how could she possibly know?
How did you know about the part you weren't there for?
Ah, that's a story for another time, I'm afraid.
What, her reading Katsumi's mind and memories? The fact this movie made it so that he can't even recall those memories in and of itself makes that suspect.
All of this inconsistency could be resulting from an unreliable narrator placing her own biases and interpretation over the reality of the situation. She sees Katsumi as her savior. She doesn't see any malevolence in his actions, and could be taking liberties as she doesn't really know a lot of minutia from what we were presented before. She could be trying to improve his image by changing how he acted to a rose-tinted version of such. And it's not the first time I've encountered this either, but usually when that happens, it's part of a story that ends up refuted or contradicted with the truth, if they're doing it competently at least. Often it runs aground of situations involving creators' pets and Mary Sue's.
But that is the only legitimate explanation for why this movie so wrecks what was seen before in Double Forever. We can't trust what Mina's saying as the actual truth. Team never kills Prospect with little fanfare, each of them getting their own shot in on the dopant before Katsumi ends it. But the stress of use breaks the T1 Eternal, it was a prototype, Katsumi promising he'll see the memory again, and taking the Lost Driver with him. But inexplicably, when his teammate suggests they take Mina, he refuses to.
Even though this is supposed to say her death was impactful to him, he doesn't want to be alone, as showcased as his motivation in Double Forever. And bringing her back is an easy solution since they have the means and power, and his plan would help convert people en masse into undead zombies. Why are you not doing that?
俺たちは未来だけ見てりゃいいんだ。
That's not a reason, and it's stupid.
まるで悪魔になったみたい。
Again, there is no difference from how we acted before. This is again evidence of the unreliable narrator thing coming into play with Mina desperate for a reason why Katsumi just abandoned her there.
As no, his revenge against Foundation X is more important to him, more than even bothering to check for a freaking pulse. As somehow, some way, Ai's power did not work on Mina to kill her. She was just rendered unconscious, and after they left, she woke up and sought to find him ever since, only later hearing about the Double Forever incident.
君だけでも生き延びていたことを大道が知っていれば。
If he knew, nothing would have changed.
克美が悪い人だって。それだけじゃなかった。なかったの。
I don't refute that, as people are never the villain of their own story. And even ignoring this film, there was recognition before of the tragedy of his undeath that made him an antagonist and threat originally. Mina collapses, the group taking her to a hospital to get checked out for exhaustion, with her ultimate fate never told, instead focusing on Philip and Shotaro as they muse on what they've been told. Inevitably, however, their conclusion is not far from mine, and nothing here changes that. But at least they now hope that he can rest in peace, as the path he took is not, and never was solely, his own fault.
その罪は永遠に消えることはない。だけどせめて弔いの花を贈ろう。
Double Returns Eternal kind of sucks with regards to the high watermark double set, but in comparison to the rest of the franchise, it's a serviceable movie. It just feels disappointing, especially since this is how Double went out.
I really didn't see the fallen hero interpretation for all this take form for Katsumi in this movie, simply because unlike every other member of Never, he never diverged significantly from how he acted before. Maybe that was the fault of Mitsuru Matsuoka's performance, as despite being a musician, he isn't a bad actor, and more fell into keeping his character's depiction consistent. The contradictions to what we learned before are more the issue, primarily because all of it came from direct sources, so this supposed expansion on that lore fails in the main respect of giving backstory to it, as prequels are not supposed to contradict the material set after it. Worse, Riku Sanjou works against himself in how he actually makes the Never team, for the most part, likable, and thus, when you go back to Double Forever, there's total whiplash as now they're just empty sociopaths reveling in the chance to bring death. And the amnesia subplot for that doesn't justify it, as Katsumi's been a necro-over for years and only lost formative memories, while everyone else has been turned more recently. That's not enough for them to be as empty as they were shown to be.
Which is why this one, too, is ultimately unnecessary. It doesn't really tell the tale of Katsumi's fall from grace from a good man into a monster, just what he was doing while all of that was being set up. And learning all of that only negatively impacts the story that made people interested in him to begin with. Skipping this one and ignoring it keeps Double Forever a great film, and there's no other impact to the series.
And really, that's not how you should go about treating material in an ongoing series. You should be taking in the experience both as a whole and how it affects you from moment to moment. Ignoring a moment in it refutes the context that moment brings.
Still, it's got some decent action scenes, seeing more Betrayal in combat is nice, and more signs of Foundation X, even if it's with June, who's more shown as a moron, that also does detract from him as well. It's just sad Double went out with this, as I hope I've shown how good this entry in the franchise was, and how it started the Neo-Heisei era of Kamen Rider on a high note, and almost everyone part of it has gone on to being successful if they weren't before.
And I don't just mean the creative staff like Sanjo, Hasegawa, and Sakamoto. Mitsuru Matsuoka would later voice Yongo in the first thing relating to the Spring movies to Not Be Bad, alongside being one of the main singers to drive soundtrack, on top of his already successful musical career. Similarly mirrored with Koji Kakawa's continued reinvention of his music, alongside Double being a launching point for him to begin an acting career, seen in films like Rurouni Kenshin, where he fantastically played Udo Jine. Munehiro Kinomoto's been in several movies, including the infamous 009-1, The End in the Beginning,
which I will be doing in the future.
Hikaru Yamamoto has done voice acting for series like Aikatsu, which is about idols and battling cards. Ren Kiriyama as well has starred in a long string of TV dramas and period films. But Masaki Suda seems to have been the one catapulted to the most success from this, with everything he's been in. Assassination Classroom, Princess Jellyfish, headlining Death Note Light Up the New World, and then reprising the role for the miniseries Death Note New Generations. All of which led to him winning a 2016 GQ Man of the Year award for Japan alongside Koji Kikawa. And that's just the main characters. Ultimately, a lot of good was springboarded from this series, matching in full the general goodwill still felt towards it to this day.
And it's what I wanted to showcase before getting to Kyoryuger, as boy was that goodwill stressed when Sanjou had his first Sentai outing, which at times kinda did feel more like how Double Returns Eternal turned out, disjointed from the expectations we had from prior material. And yes, we will be touching on Kyoryuger before the year is out. But until then, I'm Deshinta, and I'll see you all next time.